Hey everyone, welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me voice actress Brina Palencia, who I think I got the
Hello.
name right. I
You
got the name
did. You
right.
said it right. You did it right. You did it right. Very proud of you.
So we're off to a great start so far, and you are the voice of Tony Chopper from One Piece, Minoru Mineta from My Hero Academia, Seal Phantom High from Black Butler, Hollow from Spice and Wolf, and
Hello. Yes.
Julia
Mhm.
Loxer from Fairy Tale, and Nina Tucker from FMA. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nina Tucker. That was actually my very first like featured character that I ever played. That's way back.
Yeah, well, we're going to go a little bit old school and then we're going to go new school at the same time. But before we get into all of that, and I know that you've answered this before, I am curious how you initially got into voice acting because you have an interesting journey on how that all happened.
Yeah, I guess. What sucks is that usually people ask me this question because they're trying to think of like, how do I get into voice acting? And my story is in no way helpful because it's literally impossible to do anymore. I was just very lucky to do what I did at the time that I did.
Because
So I
you came in towards the tail end of the Wild West in voice acting back in
yes, I did.
2005, where just
Yeah.
so everybody
I
gets
think
an
I
idea.
actually I auditioned before that though. I started auditioning because it took me 2 years before I got anything. I just auditioned and auditioned and auditioned and never got cast. But yeah, I started auditioning like around I want to say 2002 because it was right after I graduated high school. Because I graduated high school and before I graduated, I had actually taken a tour of Funimation because I was a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, and we had like a club of kids that would all watch Dragon Ball Z after school. It's actually where I befriended my now husband. And our first kiss was actually watching Dragon Ball Z because I'm that cool. Um, and so let's see. So we took a tour of Funimation and we got to watch it was actually Chris Sabat who was recording, who is now a really dear friend of mine. And yeah, so I just remember watching them record and just thinking, I really want to do that. That looks so fun. That looks amazing. And so when I graduated high school, I, of course, immediately, when I was in community college, it turns out the community college that I went to was like really close to Funimation Studios. And so it was actually, I think I've told the story before as if was alone. I was not alone. I went to Funimation with a group of friends and we were all just like, how do we audition? And so I just like walked up to somebody because back then it was like they were like in a Frost Bank building and like
Oh
everybody
yeah,
was like in cubicles
it was like
and
on top of the bank, right?
yes, totally. And so it was kind of like they weren't really set up for people to just like walk in. Like they didn't have like a welcome desk or anything like that. At least the door that we went in at that time. And so I just like walked up to somebody in the cubicle and I was like, excuse me, do you know how we would audition for you guys? And she was like, I don't even know who the woman was. I doubt she works there anymore, but she was just like, I don't know, let's ask so and so. And she like just dragged me through the offices and we just kept asking different people like I don't know, ask so and so in this department, and like until we finally found who the talent coordinator was. I think his name was Scott. He no longer works there. And he just was like, yeah, here's a number that you can call and we'll put you on like the list for open auditions. And yeah, if you do that now, like if you walk in like I did, you will literally be blacklisted. Like people have actually done that and actually gotten blacklisted, which is why I'm like, don't do what I did. Like you cannot do that anymore because it's just too big of a studio now and it's like too well known that if like everybody was just coming in and just being like, I want to audition like a total weirdo like I was, then it just doesn't go over quite as well.
It's
But back
also
then,
changed in the last 2 years, especially with everything
oh
that's
yeah.
going on.
Oh my god.
Especially in the
Well,
last.
especially now, there's no point in going to the studios because no one is there because it's a pandemic and we're all recording from home. So yeah, yeah. My my story is not a great one in regards to like this is how you become a voice actor, because it is not how you become a voice actor, not anymore. Just not the case.
So even going off of that, so obviously you walk in, you audition, it's sort of at the tail end of the Wild West, and Funimation was transitioning from, I guess, just everything coming into the US and the anime world to then becoming a full-fledged company and actually putting infrastructure in, I think is a safe assumption that was taking place during that time period. And people like Rob McCollum have said that, and David Matranga has said that, where there was a massive shift in 2000 to about 2004. And so now you're auditioning, and then when did you get the role of Nina Tucker, which was your first featured role? Because I know you had some other stuff going on, but you're sort of back.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely like I had been like auditioning consistently for 2 years, maybe even 2.5 years at that point. By the time I got Nina, there were several times that I was like through that whole auditioning time that I was just like, man, I suck at this. Like, I'm never gonna be good at this. I'm the worst. Like, no one likes me. And they would still bring me in to audition, and they would still bring me in to do, like, little bit parts and whatever, and I was just like, "Well, I guess that's just what I'm just a bit part actor, like, I'm never gonna be a lead, whatever, who cares?" Um, and I've told Sunny this story before, I don't know if he remembers, but Sunny Straight, voice of Krillin, I auditioned for him one time for a show. He wasn't even directing the show, but he was just, like, holding the auditions, and I think it was Galaxy Railways maybe. And he like I did my audition, and he actually like took a second before I left, and he kind of pulled me aside and was like, "I just want to make sure that you know that even if you don't get this show, you're really good. So keep trying." And I was like, Thank you so much. Like, because I was truly like, I was like ready to throw in the towel at that point, and I think had he not said that to me, I probably would have just stopped going, because it was hard. Like it was expensive for me going because I lived like in Denton, and it was like a 45-minute drive, and I was really poor at the time. I was like literally living in I was living in a trailer that had holes in the floors and in the walls and was infested with wasps. So like I was super poor. And yeah, so like I was, I needed that extra push, and I'm so glad that he gave it to me, because I mean it's started my entire career. So yeah, because and even still after that, it was still like I want to say like another year before I got Nina. It was not yeah, it was not a quick
So,
thing for
so
me.
to even talk about that, because I think that's something that people don't know about voice acting, is that there is a lot of rejection. You could be the second best, but there's only one role. And there's
Yeah.
plenty of voice actors who are really good, yet they just can't land that first
Well, yeah,
role.
because it's not just about how good you are, it is about just the timbre of your voice, and, like, does it have, like, the right tone? Is it the right pitch? Is it the right like, there's so many factors that you can't really control, that it's just you. It's like it's just who you are, and I think that's why it, like, hits so hard, because it's like it's like you're literally just being rejected for who you are, like, because it doesn't necessarily have to do it doesn't just have to do with your acting. Like, yes, the acting is super important, but that's not the only factor. There are so many other factors that you have no control over, and especially because I do on-camera stuff too, and I think that one is, like, particularly difficult, because it's, like, not just your voice, it's your body and your soul and your essence and, like, who you are, and it's just like, "Mm, yeah, I don't really like you, so you're not gonna get the role." So, yeah, it's intense. Acting is a really tough gig. Like, people talk about actors being sensitive, but I mean, you really like, yes, actors are much more cracked open in regards to our vulnerability and our willingness to like be vulnerable, and our empathy and all that kind of stuff, because you have to be, that's part of the job. But you also have to be really tough and really confident to be able to like come up against that amount of rejection, because it's insane the amount of rejection that you have, and you do get used to it after a while, but man, there are times because your career can be so up and down. Like there will be years where you're just like killing it, or there will be a month where you're killing it, and then there will be 6 months where nobody is hiring you, or there'll be a whole year where nobody's hiring you, or even multiple years where nobody's hiring you, and it's so hard. It's so hard.
So now let's get back to Nina, because I think that's what everybody knows you for your first one, and there's a few other roles that you're known for as well. But obviously, Nina Tucker is a hard-hitting role for a lot of people in Full Metal
Yeah.
Alchemist. That her role just collectively as a character shifted the entire show. Where at that point the show was sort of dark, but it was still very much a positive show. And then we get to Nina Tucker, and I'm going to ruin it because I think it's been out long enough that her
At
dad
this
turns.
point, if you don't know it, it's your own fault. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
amount of memes that are out there about it, like you have to have an inkling of what it is.
I mean, everybody. Dumbledore dies too. I'm just throwing it out
Yeah.
there. So,
What?
so having said all that, obviously her dad turns her into a chimera, and then Ed and Al's reaction is that they realize they're extremely weak, that they can't really save her, and then obviously Scar kills her, and it's almost a mercy kill. And we have this like sweet character, and it really goes down the dark path from there on what happens with Full Metal Alchemist. So what was that like for you? Because even though tonality matters and how you pronounce and how you project, there is a bit of acting that definitely played into
Yeah,
this.
and don't get it twisted. It's mostly acting. It's most like you really do like the operative word in voice acting is acting. It's not just about your voice. Like the acting is the most important part, and then the other elements are there. Yeah, Nina was intense. She was a really important character for my career, not just the show. She I will say though, when I auditioned for Nina, because usually when you audition for like lead characters, you don't audition for guest stars. And so I thought that when I got the role that I was like in the show. Like I didn't know what happened to the character when I got her. So like I thought like, "Oh my god, I have like a consistent gig. This is amazing." And then, it only took 2 days to record and I was just like, "Uh, oh, oh, okay. So she's okay. Okay. Cool. Great." So I mean,
But,
I was still super excited to get the role, and I knew even when I was recording it that this was gonna be a hard-hitting, memorable character. I had no idea the power that she would have, like, 'cause, like you said, I've done a lot of roles since then. I mean, I've been in over 200 properties, and I've had several leads, and it's amazing how much people freak out about that role whenever I say it at conventions, when we had conventions. Like, yeah, it's wild how much people still love that show and still love that character. Like it's insane.
going on 16 years. We're
Yeah.
still talking about it. So
Yeah.
just throwing that out there,
Yeah.
because it really does change it. And at that time in the anime world, and I tend to be like an anime historian type of guy, that was really a dark show for my era, where I'm
Mhm.
28. And so back in 2005, I was like 12. And so obviously at that point in anime, there wasn't anything dark for a 12-year-old out there, and that
Sure,
show was
yeah.
there. And it's like, oh. And so it's one of those moments that sort of happened.
Yeah.
And we're still talking about it, and people still remember it, and it's super big. So, and now I want to shift to another big role because I want to talk about the show that keeps on giving, and that's One Piece for you.
Yes.
So I do want to bring up a minor role that's going to be very interesting because I'm curious because you play young Zoro.
Yes. Yes, I do. I
And,
played
and
one other role in One Piece too. You get extra points if you even know what the other role is. It was one episode.
It's actually slipping my mind because I know it's on. I think it's on Wikipedia too, which is even worse.
Yeah,
So
I think I'm pretty sure her name was Carmen, and she had like some sort of competition with like cooking competition or something with Sanji. But yeah, it was like a really short-lived character. I'm always amazed if anyone even remembers her at all and even knows that I played her.
let's talk about young Zoro for a second because obviously Chris plays Zorro. You're
Yeah.
friends with Chris. Chris got you into anime, and it's kind of one of those stories that's sort of full circle where there are flashbacks to Zorro and Zorro as a kid, and then he plays, I guess, adult Zorro for lack of a better word. So what is that like? Because it's kind of a cool scenario where it's just that the world is so small that you
Yeah.
wind up overlapping.
Well,
And
what's funny is that's not the first time that I've played a young Chris Sabat. I think that might have been my third time to play a young Chris Sabat. Um, I don't know why. I don't think we sound anything alike. And I don't think we're really that much alike as people. I think we're very different. I guess we are. We're. I don't know. I've worked with him a lot in like music, in the music realm, and we work really well in that regard, and we are very much kind of the same person in that regard. Like we create one brain, but like yeah, beyond that, I don't think we have much in common. We're very different. Um, yeah, no, it was dope. I had already, I was already voicing, I was already voicing Chopper by that point. So I think I was surprised that I got to play young Zoro. I didn't expect them to give me, because I feel like, as far as like smaller like voice roles are concerned, I feel like young Zoro is kind of a bigger deal, and they normally don't give us multiple big deal roles. You know what I mean? Like the one episode characters are one thing, but it's different when it's like, oh, this will probably be recurring. But yeah, I mean, it was dope. I don't love doing the character because it's really painful because he screams so much. And like Chopper's scream, because he's higher pitched, is not as hard for me. Zoro's, because it has to like stay all gruff and whatever, like that's a lot harder, and it's a lot harder on my voice. So I'm always excited to get a gig, but I definitely when it's for young Zoro, I'm like, yay. Okay.
so so to back out of Zorro and talk about Chopper, because I don't
Mhm.
know if you know this, but I got to interview Lisa Ortiz, who plays the Four Kids
I
Chopper,
love her. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
She's
she's
lovely.
great. She's great. It's a Pokemon thing, and that's what it's all about. And we spoke about Chopper too, which is cool as well. And you play Funimation's dub on Chopper, and
Yeah.
so how did that come about? Because at this point, One Piece, when you came in, obviously it was further along, and then Funimation took it over and sort of, I guess, back dubbed and then forward dubbed it at the
Mhm.
same time. And
Yeah.
so, how did your role as Chopper come in? Because I don't know exactly what we classify Chopper as, because Chopper is sort of a lead, but also One Piece is an ensemble cast at this point.
Oh, yeah, big time. And he also didn't come in until later in the series. But
Like
when
episode
we
80-ish, I think.
yes, I think you're right. But when we got the show, he obviously was already in, and that was one of the more intense auditions that I've ever done for Funimation, because typically you go in, you audition once, and you either get it or you don't. And like end of story. They don't tell you if you don't get it. You only know if you actually got it. You just like have to go in, read the stuff, and then leave and then forget about it. And then if you hear back, yay. With Chopper, I had to audition several times. I had like several callbacks. Um, we Another thing that was different was that I actually got to, in the audition, got to watch some scenes of the Japanese, whereas normally we don't get that opportunity, unless it's like already online or something. But like, yeah, like they specifically wanted us to match the Japanese voice of Chopper as much as we could, or like just be inspired by it. And so it was like I think they had to have like 5 options or something. Mike McFarlane would know this better because he was the director and, like, is the one who did all the initial auditions, and continues to work on it to this day. But like I think he had to like send uh the Japanese producers 5 options of like each character, and then they just kept like whittling them down. But
That's
I
because
think
One Piece is money in the bank. That's why.
sure, yeah. I mean, we definitely like it was a buzz at the office. Like everybody knew that One Piece was a big deal and everybody wanted to be on it. And I had a few roles under my belt at that point, but I didn't have anything that was that big. Like all the shows that I was on before that, they weren't like one of those long running like big deal kind of show. I just had never, you know, been on one. I never got cast, and so it was a big deal. I did not expect to get cast, but when I did get cast, it was a huge honor, especially like because Colleen, Luffy, Colleen is actually who. So she and Mike McFarland cast me in Full Metal Alchemist. And then from there, Colleen actually kind of took me under her wing, and she cast me in a couple of the things, and then she actually trained me to be a director for her. Like she was my producer, and I directed like with her as my boss. It was like a little bit different how they set stuff up compared to how they do now in regards to directors. But
Back in the old days.
back in the old days, yeah. And so she was kind of my mentor. So like to be like in a show, a long-running show with her at the helm, like as Luffy, and then also Lucy Christian, who I adored and like admired so much, and I had gotten to direct her in School Rumble. She was the lead in School Rumble, and like I feel like I learned so much about voice acting getting to direct her, because she's just such a boss. She's so good. And I remember the first time that I directed her just being like, "Oh, that's why you get cast all the time. Oh my god." Like she's just so fast and so pro, and like god, she's amazing. But yeah, so like her and obviously Chris Sabat, like and Sunny, the person who encouraged me to even continue voice act. It was like all these people that I admired so much, and like to be in a crew with them was just like mind blowing to me. Like I couldn't believe it. Like that was such a huge part of my career. Like that's such a like that's a definitely a touchstone, like one that I will always remember, and one that just means the world to me, truly.
And obviously, One Piece is big. Just hit chapter 1,000 is coming, or it's just came out.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a bunch of movies. Yesterday was Anime Pop Funko Day, and there was a bunch of One Piece stuff that came out.
Oh,
So
I didn't know that.
it's awesome. And there's an awesome Luffy that just came out, actually, by Hot Topic and by Chalice, which is super cool.
Oh.
I may not have bought one or two or five, but that's not here nor there. But even with Chopper, because in many ways it is the gift that keeps giving, because it's still going on, One Piece.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And one of the things that I like about Chopper is Chopper can be very comedic, could be very funny. He could be very scared of ghosts, but then you also have those touching moments with Chopper where he says to Luffy, "I'll be happy to be called a monster if it means achieving your dreams," or something like that. And then
Yeah.
you also have Chopper's 3 forms, and you have Chopper going into monster form and all sorts of stuff with that. So we get really a nice balance with Chopper as a character, and not every anime character that you get to voice gets to do that. And so, what is that like for you that you get to really play? I don't want to say like 9 different versions of Chopper, but you really get to play a variety of emotions.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what makes the show so good is that all of the characters are so fleshed out like that. Like none of them are just one note all the time. Um like we all get to have those like deep, like just like moments that like actors just, love, where we can just kind of sink our teeth into it and just really just dive into the psyche of this character, because he could very easily just be like a cute little reindeer doctor guy, like, but he's so much more than that. And another thing I love about the show is that the characters grow, like they get more mature, they grow with the audience, which I think is so powerful, and another reason why it's been so successful, because you just you never get tired of it because it really does just continue to surprise you and like motivate you and move you in ways that you just aren't expecting. You know what I mean? But yeah, all of our origin stories are just devastating. Um,
There's also a bunch of inside stuff on how the
yeah,
crew joins, and there's all this trivia that isn't even in the manga or the anime on how people join and what's going on, and it's so deep, and the world is so rich,
yeah,
and so it's an amazing show because it's like Naruto is very similar, even though that's out west. It's such a big world, and
yeah.
Fairy Tail is a good example of that too, where we have that big world and so
Mhm.
there's a lot to play with. And I would imagine that it's easier as a voice actor when you have a richer world to play in than when
Absolutely. Yes.
it's
I actually I say that a lot. I there's another role that I really love, which is Gasai in Future Diary. I She's one of my favorites because they do such a good job of not just making her, the typical, like, "I'm obsessed with a boy" kind of thing, like, they dive so deeply into what makes her her and, like, go into, like, all of her abuse and all that kind of stuff that it makes like, when we have that kind of backstory as an actor and we're able to make sense of these seemingly insane, choices that our characters make, it makes our job so much easier and so much more fun. 'Cause it's just like, "Ah, okay, I get you. I can get into this mindset." You know what I mean? Yeah, it definitely like I said, it makes our job easier and more fun the more backstory we can get for our characters.
yeah, and we might as well talk about Future Diary. Just go straight from Chopper into Future Diary.
Complete, like, total
He's
opposite.
right into it.
Yeah,
So Future Diary is a crazy show in of itself.
yeah.
It's bizarre. It's out there. It's definitely a psychological thriller in many ways. There's some messed up shit in that show. To put it
To say the
bluntly,
least.
to
Yeah,
put it very nicely,
yeah.
and obviously your character is somewhat psycho and sociopathic to some degree and obsessed, but at the same time also wants to protect the boy and protect the main character and obviously is sort of selfish but very selfless at the same time. There's a lot of stuff
Mhm.
going on. And so what was that role like? Because it's something that's very different than the other stuff you've done.
Yeah, I mean, it was really hard, and, like, we we worked super hard on it. Like, there was a lot of discussion, I'm typically, especially at this point, like, I'm pretty fast at, like, recording. Like, it'll only take me 1 or 2 takes typically to, like, get something down. But with um it just took more time. Like and I wanted to take that time, and thankfully Zach Bolton, who was the director, gave me that time. Like it just took a little bit more finesse because we didn't want it to be that she was just like, look, I'm crazy. Like it's more than that. Like
Yeah,
you know,
there's a lot more going on
hurts,
with her.
she's not just a sociopath. Like she's not just whatever. Like there's a lot going on inside of her. There's so much pain there that we wanted to make sure was present in everything that she did. And there's a lot of thought that she puts in everything that she does too. So it's not like, she's not just making like quick decisions without thinking. Like she's if anything overthinking. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it was such a fun role. Anytime that you're challenged like that as an actor is, like, always such a gift, especially whenever you've been in the game for, like, so many years. When you get a role like that you can just, like that makes you actually have to, like, stop and think and, like, really, like, kinda open your heart up more to, like, be able to empathize. It's such a blessing. It's so awesome.
Yeah, and I think that there's two more roles that I feel that really also hit this. And the first one is obviously Black Butler as
Yes.
Seal, and I think I said it right.
CL Phantom Hive, yes.
And obviously Seal is fascinating Seal is just to give everybody an idea who hasn't seen this. Seal is the main protagonist whose parents pretty much die. His twin gets sacrificed. He's sort of
That's a
enslaved.
spoiler. Hello.
Yeah, well. It's been out for long enough, and my audience is gonna have to deal with it. Guys, Dumbledore dies. Okay, deal with it.
Right.
I'm not ruining the Mandalorian, so everybody gets to pick their poison here. But anyhow, and he basically summons this demon person thingy who's his butler, and he's out for revenge. And then it's pretty dark. It's pretty sick. He's sort of sadistic, and yeah. So how did you go even get involved in this show and even finding this character's voice? Because I'll be completely honest. When I first was watching this, I was like, oh, this looks like a shoujo, and I did not expect it to go the way it went completely,
Yeah.
and I was caught off guard. It very much looks like one thing and goes a very different direction very quickly.
Big time. Yes. It is. It does get very, very intense. So the way that I came up with the voice, so Colleen Clinkenbeard was the initial director, and she is who did the first round of casting. And then eventually, I think after like episode 6 or something, Ian Sinclair took over. But before that, before we were all cast, Colleen had called me in for the audition, and she said, "I need you to do a British accent, Queen's English, specifically Queen's English. Watch some uh, uh, BBC. Oh my
Downton
god,
Abbey.
no, it wasn't Downton Abbey. What was it? Oh my god, I can't remember. I've said it before. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, Jane Austen films. There we go. Just like like BBC did like several Jane Austen like films based on Jane Austen's novels or whatever. So she was like, watch the Jane Austen films, and get that accent down. And just before Black Butler, I had done a show called Nabari no O, and played a troubled, boy. And she was like, basically, what I would love to hear is for you to do that voice with a British accent. I want to hear what that sounds like. And so that's what I did. Fun fact though, since I did CL for so long, now whenever I try to do a boy voice in that same range, I instantly go into a British accent. Like I did a role, I forget what show it was for, but I did a role right after we finished the second season, and like I had to be corrected like every 5 minutes. Like, you're doing British again, you're doing British. And I'm like, God dang it. It's like my muscle memory is just like my whole body just wants to be British. But yeah, so that's how we did the auditions. And then doing that role, it's been really fascinating just as like in regards to my own journey with like therapy and stuff. Because in the beginning of the show, I really empathized with him. Like one of my favorite lines of his is like when he's confronted with his parents or whatever, and they were like, "You just need to let go of your hatred," and he's like, "I will never let go of my hatred." And he talks about how it's like a part of me, and then to let go of that means to let go of myself or whatever. And at the time I was like, yeah, that's how I feel about my own anger issues. And then I went to therapy, and now like I went to therapy, I've like become a mother, like there's all these things that have happened since playing that role. And getting to revisit it, like it just breaks my heart. Like it just breaks my heart so much. Like I remember the end of the third season, that monologue that he has, like the Book of Circus or whatever. At the end of that, there's this like long monologue he has about just like about no one having any honor, basically. Like no one is a good person. And like I did that monologue, and I remember Ian being like, "You look like someone just shot your puppy." And I was like, I'm just so sad. I'm so sad for him. Like, it's just so devastating, like, because you see him just turn, like his like, like his heart just rots slowly, like throughout the series. It's like he starts out as just angry and like wanting the revenge, but then he just gets like so much more broken and so much like his heart rotting is the best way to put it. And it's honestly how I picture like there's like a Michael Chekhov technique of like finding the core the center your character's center, and you it's a really abstract way to think of your character where it's like you create their center. It can be anywhere in your body, and it can like it can be made out of anything. It could be any color, any whatever. And like I just always pictured his center as a rotting heart. Like that's just what I always had in my mind whenever I was recording for him. And it's a lot. It's very emotional. Like it puts that character put me through the ringer for sure. But that's also why he's one of my favorite characters of all time, honestly. And he like because not only is he difficult on an emotional level, he's also just difficult on a technical level because it's a boy voice and it's a boy voice with a dialect. So it's a lot. And as I have said before already in this interview, I enjoy a challenge.
There's a lot of fuckery that goes on with
Yeah.
this series.
To put it shortly, yeah, just straight into the point. Lots of fuckery. Yes.
And so to go to the other side of Seal, we have to talk about Spice and Wolf with Hollow, because Hollow is like the exact opposite in many ways, but still somewhat messed up in that entire show.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. No, totally.
I love Spice and Wolf. It's like one of my favorite animes. I think it's brilliantly done. I think it's beautifully animated, and I think that just the entire dialogue between your character and Lawrence's character is so spot on. And one of the things that's super interesting is that J. Michael Tatum is Sebastian.
Tatum, yeah.
Tatum is Sebastian the Butler and Black Butler, and he's Lawrence in Spice and Wolf, and the two of you just have amazing chemistry. And I know that typically in the booth, I think 98% of the time, usually there's not somebody in there with you.
I would say 99.9999% of the time, pretty much 100% of the time when you're doing anime. Yeah, but I know Tatum really well. We've been friends for a long time. I actually, Your Welcome World gave him his very first lead role in a show that no one saw. What was it called? Black Blood Brothers. He played a vampire for me. And so we worked a lot, with that show. And then he directed me in Romeo X Juliet.
A great show too.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it was so good. And so we really knew each other's voices just inside and out, but we also just are good friends. Like we also, hang out outside of work. I introduced him to his fiance, also Your Welcome World. Yeah, so I just even though we even when we would record before the other person, so we didn't get to hear their performance, I just know what he sounds like. And it's easier for me to predict what he's going to sound like, and I can hear him in my head. So, it didn't take much imagination to know, like, to just like pretend like he was in the booth with me. You know what I mean? That we were actually acting out these scenes together. And I think that that's actually a big reason why every time I get into the booth and I'm doing a new character and I don't know the cast well in the show, one of my first, if I'm doing a scene with another character, I'm like, who is this? Who am I talking to? And sadly, because I've been out of the game a little bit, and I, since having a kid, I don't really hang out with people. And also, there's a pandemic, and I've been isolating since March. I just don't know a lot of the newer people. So whenever I ask, like, who am I talking to? It's like usually a name I don't know, which is harder. So I just kind of have to make up a voice in my head.
It's a real advantage when you know somebody really well and you know how their voice is going to sound. Because I would imagine that with his voice, you get an idea where he can go, his range, and understand things and predict. And I say this because the chemistry in both these shows is really, really well. And maybe somebody watching on just like the first level of an anime might not be able to pick it up and understand what's going on. But when you start diving down deeper, and I watch a lot of anime, I watch like 800 episodes a year. So
damn, girl, okay.
I watch a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't sleep anymore. I'm drinking a bunch of Monster. This is their new sponsorship commercial right here. But you want to watch 800 episodes of anime, Monster. Um, but I digress right there. But I just hear it and I pick up and I'm like, oh, this doesn't just happen. It's not an accident. And so I love the chemistry, especially in Spice and Wolf. And I just think it's so perfect. I think with that show in particular, even more than Black Butler, like just the dialogue.
In Spice and Wolf, it's more that they're more equals, whereas in Black Butler, it's a lot of, because his character is a demon. He doesn't actually feel anything for Ciel. He just doesn't. Ciel feels a lot of weird stuff and intense and confusing things about him because he's an actual human and a child who's gone through a lot of things that children should not have to go through. And my voice cracked when I said that. I'm just like, my baby. But so it's different because it's not that relationship inherently is not like a give and take. Like there's not like a true, and there's not a true love there. It's like a weird, manipulative, just messed up, like insane relationship. Whereas, in Spice and Wolf, Holo and Lawrence, like there's a real love there, like there's actual like connection. There's a true give and take. There's a relationship, you know what I mean? It's not just a fantasy of a relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes both of these so good, though, is that once you find out who's voicing who, you're like, oh, it's even more interesting because I saw Spice and Wolf first, and then I saw Black Butler second, and then I didn't know because I don't go in and look at who's voicing who first and foremost, and then when you start diving into it, you're like, oh, this is kind of crazy. When you actually see it and like, how did this happen? Because I didn't even pick up initially on it until I started looking up who, and then I started spotting it and seeing it. So super cool on my end on seeing that. I'm like, oh, now I get it. So super cool, super cool. But I do want to talk about Fairy Tail too, because I love Fairy Tail. I'm in the middle of Fairy Tail. I'm watching it. I'm about 100 episodes in, and Fairy Tail is great. And you played Julia Loxier. And
Loxar.
I stand corrected. Again, names are not my forte. I'm so bad at this. But I love Julia as a character. I think she's great. I like the fact that her personality, I like the fact how you voice her too, where it's like high pitched up and then she's like obsessed with Gray. And like there's all these great episodes. Like that Love Potion episode is like the funniest episode.
Yeah, I feel like Julia often serves as like the comedic relief in the show. Like she'll have random moments where she gets really intense and true, not just like intensely in love with Gray, but where she'll like be ready to fight or whatever that are very cool. But I feel like for the most part, she is very just like, whoa, Gray! Like, yeah, it's just a very like silly, fun character.
And then I like how she speaks sometimes in third person too. I just love that entire concept. I just think she's funny, and I think she's great because she breaks up the show in many ways where there's like a serious moment and then we get that comedic relief. And also though, and I'm curious, like Fairy Tail is another one of those shows that's big, that obviously has garnered attention and people love it. People love it. It's got a whole merchandise line like One Piece does. So it's one of those shows that's just, I think it's one of those shows that's going to go down in the anime world and anime history as sort of being one of those like big ensemble casts that like they're going to be watching for the next 50 years easily. Like One Piece is going to be in that category too because there's so many episodes and it has such a big following. Yeah. And so what is that like to be in shows like that? Because this is another big show.
Yeah, well, I mean, and My Hero is the same too, I feel.
We're getting to that. Let's not ruin things.
Yeah. Yeah, knock on wood. Um, yeah, man, it's truly an honor. Like, I mean, that just sounds so cliche to say, but it really is. Like, I don't have words for it because it's just, just thinking about like just being such a big fan, like back when I was in high school, and like if you would have told my 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old self that I would be working for Funimation, and especially that I'd be to the point where I am now, like, I don't know. I don't know that I would be I'd be very proud of my adult self, I think. Um,
And even to add to that, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you're still relatively young. And so you have a long career ahead of you in many ways. And what you've
yeah.
accomplished in a short amount of time is super important. And I say this not to inflate your ego and not to kiss ass a little bit, but the idea is that you are still relatively young. And so that's something I think that's also really important to acknowledge, is that in the last 14 years, you've done a lot of roles and a lot of big roles. And obviously, a lot of those roles are still continuing up to this point. And I think that that's also something to pay attention to as well.
Yeah, I've been very lucky in that regard because since having my son, he's gonna be 2 on February 1st, so very soon.
So you've got
Um
3 years before he has to start getting into, the guild.
I already had somebody reach out to see if I could get him to like be on an audio book something, and I was just like, he can't, like, I was like, he can talk, but I can't really get him to say anything yet. Like he's not even 2. I don't think I'm what you're looking for. But anyway, since having him, I've actually stopped auditioning for stuff. Like I've definitely like slowed down. Like I've been like actively telling people to not cast me and stuff. But because I have those ongoing characters, like I've just been lucky enough that I still get to work without having to like do the grind of auditioning and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really, really lucky in that regard. And I've, established enough relationships with like other producers and stuff that I'm getting to do like audiobooks and stuff now too. But yeah, all that is to say, like, right now for me, I'm just super lucky because it looks as if I'm doing all of this cool stuff, but to me it feels like I'm not doing much at all because I'm not doing those like daily auditions and like, because I mean that's such a like for voice actors, well, and for on-camera actors, you have to like drive to the place, like it's a full-time job, like just like driving to auditions and showing up. Not so much right now because of the pandemic, but like even for the voice acting, like there are days where it would take me like 2 or 3 hours just to do all the auditions for that day. Like, I mean, it's a lot of work. And it's unpaid work. Like doing those auditions, you're spending 2 or 3 hours to hopefully maybe get one of them, but probably not. Like, so it's a lot. It's a lot of time that I thankfully right now am lucky enough that I don't have to do. Because also like I mean I shout out to my husband who's an attorney, so thankfully he's been kind of helping me in that regard. You know how relationships work. I just feel weird about it because I've never relied on him for money in any way, so it's just awkward to say, but I also feel like I need to like point out like I'm not just making all this money from these few roles. Like we don't make that much money as voice actors. um but it's because I'm just really lucky. I'm lucky all around. Lucky, lucky, lucky.
So to jump into the final voice role, and then there's one video game role that we have to talk about, and I think you know which one I'm talking about with that one. But let's talk about My Hero Academia and Mineta. I think is it how it's
Yeah,
said.
Netta, yeah.
And so I love Mineta. I think he's also known as Grape Juice slash Pop Off is his quirk, I guess, is something that's how he's referred to. And obviously, this show is beyond popular. It's like the one of the number one animes. It's like
Yeah.
I don't even know. It might even be bigger than One Piece to some degree, which
I
is
think
crazy.
yeah, I think right now it's super hot right now for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the three biggest shows right now are One Piece, Attack on Titan, and My Hero Academia, and
Yeah.
then Doctor Stone is probably a close fourth,
Yeah.
easy. And those four are the top. And anybody who says otherwise doesn't watch anime. I'm just saying. I'm not saying anything that's controversial at all when I say all this. And so I'm super curious, how did you get involved with this character and how did all this come out? Because this character in the show is, as I stated, beyond popular.
Yeah. I I think so. Colleen is the director for it, and she cast it as well. And I remember doing my auditions in a hotel room because I was at a convention, I think. Um, and I want to say, I think I only auditioned uh for Minetta and for uh Suyu or Froppy.
Yeah, Froppy. We all love Froppy.
Um,
Froppy's good.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and
I love Froppy.
I think those are the only two characters that I really wanted because I felt like they lended themselves to having a weird voice, and like I said, I like being challenged, and so I was just like, "What kind of voice can I put on these that I haven't gotten to do yet?" Because I get bored otherwise, and so, hilariously, after the auditions, Colleen texted me and Monica, and she was just like, "Just so you guys know, one of you is gonna be playing, Suyu, and one of you is gonna be playing Minetta. I haven't decided which one is which yet, but you 2 are doing one or the other." And I was just
So,
like,
so let
"Dope!"
me ask you. Let me ask this: what was that like? Knowing you have a role, you just don't know what? Because it's like it
Um,
must be odd to some degree.
yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I didn't know the show well enough to know the difference really between them that much. So and like I said, those are the 2 that I wanted. So I was just like, "Great, win! I can't wait." I can't wait to find out which one is which. And I also I'm actually really happy that I ended up with Minetta because I get to do a lisp, and I personally think that lisps are like the cutest thing in the world. And my son currently has one, which makes me really happy. Um, I think it's so adorable, and I felt like it because of his like kind of perverted nature and whatever. I felt like giving him a lisp would make him a little less uh, off-putting. Um, I don't know that I succeeded because it seems like he's, like, one of the most hated characters of the show. But
It's kind of funny.
yeah, I think it's funny, and I love him, and I think people are too hard on him. I feel like people forget, like, he's a kid. Like, he's not like an adult man saying these things about women. He's a kid who doesn't know anything and is, like, trying to posture the way society tells him to posture, you know what I mean? It would also be different, I think, if he were, if they were, like, you know, within the show, if everyone around him was just like, "Yeah, you're right. Being a pervert is awesome." Like, I think because he gets shot down all the time, that's what makes it funny, and then that's what makes him more of a comedic relief, you know what I mean? I also would like to point out that I definitely have played women characters that are extremely perverted, which I think we're about to talk about one of them, that, like,
So
people
I
don't
will say
seem
this
to care about.
about Minetta, though. I will say this: his role, and when he has, because he has his moments against
He
Midnight,
does, yes,
and that is like massive female pervert versus kid pervert, and you have this insane, I guess, scenario that you're like, okay, I can get behind this, and like I love it. I think it's great. I love the fact that it's included in the show. All this, I love the fact that in today's society, that wasn't edited out as well, because I think that it does work really well in My Hero Academia. I also think that it's taking shots at certain things, and whether it's
Yeah.
intentional or not, there's a book called Super Folks. Super Folks is the predecessor to a book called Astro City, and Astro City is what My Hero is based off of. Legit, you could take My Hero and place it over Astro City, and there's very few differences. And
Oh,
then
I
obviously
never heard that before.
it's been confirmed that Super Folks inspired Astro City right
Oh,
in the forward. And Super Folks is a book from the 70s, and the main character is a little bit perverted in Super Folks. So I would make the argument that Minetta is a throwback to parts of Astro City and parts of Super Folks in
really?
that, and also playing a little bit to that superhero trope, because it does exist if you go back and you look hard enough in like comics dating back to 40, 50 years ago. So I, as a superhero fan and a comic fan, love it. and I
Cool.
love it.
Well, and I
So
just for people out there who are still like, I hate Minetta, like just remember he's a child who's trying to figure out his sexuality and trying to figure it out in a society that tells him that this is the way to do it. And like thankfully he has friends who are telling him that's not the way to do it, man. Like, and that's what we need. Like, he's not a kid who he shouldn't be shunned for this and like, canceled just for that. Like, it should be that he is guided into what what humaning is with people who can love him and show him like, hey man, that's just not how you do it. You know what I mean? Because he is again a child. Like it's
I love
different.
it.
It's different when if he were an adult man doing this, then yes, sure, hate him all you want, but like have a little bit of sympathy. We were like, as much as you might not want to admit it, like I feel like we were all perverts when we were going through puberty, like even though we may have hid it or whatever. Like he's just, he's just saying it out loud. That's all.
I love Minetta. I think Minetta is a great character, and I
Good.
like to hate Minetta to some degree also, but I also love Minetta at the same
I think
time.
it's important to do both, man. He's not a perfect character. I'm not saying he needs to be like lauded as a hero, like for being a pervert. I'm just saying, like, have a little compassion. It's hard figuring out your sexuality as a kid. Like it's weird. It's awkward.
Yeah, and there are moments in season when he faces Midnight, as I stated, and even in season one as well. And I think he also gets away with it partially because of that as well. But
Yeah.
I do want to talk about one more character, and that's Borderlands Mad Moxie.
Of
And
course, Sugar.
obviously, for those who don't know, Mad Moxie is fascinating. You know, she is probably one of the most recognizable video game characters ever. Just from the cosplay side of things, the video game playing side of things. Obviously, Borderlands is a big franchise at this point, and to go even further, she obviously could be very, sexual innuendos is a thing that she puts out there. She could be somewhat sadistic, somewhat torturous, but she could be super friendly too, and
Yeah.
super helpful and super nice at the same time. And she's had, many husbands and many other lovers to throw that out there. So clearly, this is not a PG character. I think is a good way. It might be a not safe for work character,
Yeah.
to say the least. So, how did you get Mad Moxie's role? Because obviously, and to even go further off of this, video games are now entering and taking over Comic Cons and anime cons, and they're now becoming more of a mainstay. And that's been for the last 10 years, I would say. And so, obviously, this adds a whole level, I think, to you when you do cons.
Sure. Yeah. No, definitely. She's very popular. As far as like how I got that role, I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know. Like,
It
I
just happened, right?
auditioned. I auditioned like you do. Um, I auditioned for several roles in the game. I don't remember all of them. I'm sure it was just all of the main females. Um, and I remember reading for Moxie and laughing at myself and just being like, well, that's never going to happen. Because I had never played a sexy character at all. I had never even played an adult woman by that time. So I was just like, obviously, that's not happening. And so my agent calls. This is like, congratulations, you got a role in Borderlands. Or I don't even think I knew the name of the game. It was just like the video game you auditioned for. And I was like, oh my God, awesome. Which character did I get? And she was like, you got Mad Moxie. And I was like, that's clearly inaccurate information. I guess I'll find out when I get there what role I got. And so I get there and I was like, who am I reading for? And they were like, Mad Moxie. And I was like, what? Like, are you sure? And they were just like, yeah, what? And I was like, uh-huh, yep, I'm ready for this. And I honestly I just kept waiting for them to fire me because I felt like I was so bad at it. Because like I said, it's like usually I can like get into a role and it's just like one or two takes, done, boom, boom, on it. I required a lot of direction with that character. Not as much anymore because I've played her for so many years now. But oh my God, in the beginning I was so awkward and I just kind of like It felt like I was a little girl wearing my mom's heels and trying to walk in them. Like, it was just such a weird, like, "I don't know how to say this." Like, I remember I'm, like, having a resurface memory. In the audition, they asked us to like, the reference they gave us was, Nicole Kidman in Moulin Rouge. And so I remember, like, just watching her stuff over and over and over and over and over again and trying to, like, kind of voice match it. So I think I just did a good voice match of that character. She ended up sounding nothing like that. But, like, I guess just for the audition, I was able to sound enough like Nicole Kidman that they brought me in, and I'm grateful that they did, I really am. But, like, God, that's a character that I'm just like, "Should I are you sure this is the character?" And I remember, like, even some of my friends, like, who are also voice actors and, like, know my voice, when I would tell them that I was playing that character, they'd be like, "What? Why?" I mean, congratulations, but what?
To even go further off of that, because obviously it's big. A lot of people cosplay it. A lot of prominent cosplayers.
I love Mad Moxie cosplayers, oh my god. I love them. Tag me in all of your photos. You all look amazing. It makes me so happy to see Mad Moxie cosplayers. I've actually
So,
befriended several of them too.
so what is that like? Because obviously you're the voice and you're bringing that character to life, and obviously you have a connection. So it must be so interesting for you that you're in this and like now you're good at it, but you came in sort of a happy accident. You weren't very good at it. No
Yeah.
offense to any
Yeah, no, I really was not.
and then now you're like the face of it. And I know very little about Borderlands. You know, I've played it, but it's been a while. It's not my go-to game. I'm just doesn't vibe with me the best. But obviously, what I played, I love, and what I've seen of it, it's cool. But obviously, there's you're sort of the face of that entire franchise to some degree. Where when people think of Borderlands, they say Mad Moxie. You know, when I think of Borderlands, I think Mad Moxie. I don't think of any other character at this point. And so obviously when you go to a con, you probably see a bunch of Mad Moxies. People come up to you specifically for it. I'm sure you sign people's video games and stuff like that. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
like
Yeah,
what
totally.
is that entire thing? Because it must be super cool. And I know you've done that with a bunch of other anime stuff too, but it's sort of different, I guess, with a video game because it reaches a different audience in many ways, but it reaches some of the same audience.
Yeah, it does reach kind of a different audience. Like, it's a there are a lot more the thing that I've noticed, there's, like, a much higher percentage of, like, military personnel that are really into Borderlands, which I think is kind of fun. And, uh, yeah, it's a totally different type of fandom. It's a little bit older fandom too, tends to be anyway, and, like, yeah, man, it's definitely very cool. It's my more mainstream role, I guess. Like, there's, that's, like, the role that, like 'cause, it's like, either you like anime or you don't. There's not a lot of crossover, but there's a lot of people who wouldn't call themselves gamers who know Borderlands just because video games are so, prominent in our culture. Like, they've at least heard of Borderlands. So yeah, it's definitely one of my more mainstream roles. Anytime someone cosplays a character that I have voiced, it is incredibly exciting. Like, it's so fun. It's one of my favorite things that I currently really miss about going to conventions. Um, it's just so cool. Like, because I just think about especially the people who make their own cosplay, like the amount of time that they put into it, especially with the Borderlands stuff, because they have to, like, hand paint so much of it, and, like, a lot of them will, like, make her gun and everything, and, like like, or they'll make, like, her megaphone, or, like, I've seen them, like, walk around with a tip jar and stuff, like, it's just so fun, like, seeing the accessories and just seeing how much time and effort they put into this character, like, it just
So the
shows.
variants of her cosplay are
Oh my
awesome.
gosh, yes,
And people have
totally.
fun with that. I know a bunch of people who've done stuff like that. And
Yeah,
so
yes, totally. It's so fun to
super
see.
cool. Super cool. And I enjoy seeing cosplay as a whole, and I enjoy when people do mashups of things with Borderlands. And so obviously you're the voice, you're the face of that. I think franchise in many ways, whether that was the intention or not. That's what it's amounting to at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
and, and,
I'm just lucky that I get to be a part of it at all. Like like I said, I just stumbled into that. They somehow uh, tricked themselves into believing I was a good voice for it, and I think I eventually became a good voice for it. But oh my god, in the beginning, it was just like I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my god, yeah.
well, on that note, and I know that you have somewhat of a hard out, and we're a little bit over. But I do want to, and we didn't get to half the roles I wanted to talk about. There's so much more that we could talk about. You have 200 roles. We didn't talk about Dragon Ball Z or any of that. So
Yeah.
we didn't talk about Rosario Vampire.
I
Just
guess I'll
throwing out
just
some stuff
have
here.
to. Guess I'll just have to come back.
That's the plan eventually, hopefully. But I do want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself. Where can people find you on social media? I think you most likely have a Twitter. I don't know if you
I
have an
do.
Instagram,
Yeah, I
a
have Twitter and
website.
Instagram. My Twitter is at Brina Palencia, so just my name. My Instagram is at Brinakins, Brinakins, and I occasionally will post a lot of music stuff on there on my Instagram. That's like if you want to hear any of my music, Instagram is definitely where to go. I already have like a ton of songs that are up on there if you wanted to peruse. But yeah, I technically have a Facebook page, but I check it like once a year. Um, Maybe even once every like I honestly don't know the last time I checked it. Actually I think it's literally been like 3 years since I've checked it now I think about it because I think the last time I checked it I changed the photo to uh um Book of Titanic, the Black Butler film that came out several years ago. So I think that's the last time I checked it. So yeah, Twitter or Instagram is probably better for me.
Well, on that note, I think that's a wrap. But I've been saying this to everybody in every interview that I've done. Obviously, you have to support people you like. You have to support them and check out what they're doing. If they have prints, if they have merch, they have anything that's going on. They're going to be at a convention. Obviously, it's a little bit complicated. I know that people are doing virtual signings, and I don't know
I'm
what.
actually doing a virtual one through GalaxyCon for Tokyo Ghoul on the 29th, I think. Go to the GalaxyCon website. They'll have it up there.
And so obviously you have to support people first and foremost, as I was saying, economically. So if you like somebody and you're a fan of 2020 Chopper, which I'm assuming it's probably part of, or 2020 Chopper, Tokyo Ghoul, that stuff, which we didn't talk about as well. And if you like those characters, obviously you should definitely check that out. And it's GalaxyCon. They do a bunch of cool stuff all over the US.
Yeah.
I know they're doing a bunch of virtual signings with a bunch of people. So obviously you have to check that out. And then secondly, if money's tight in your life, you have to follow people on social media. It's super important at this point for a few reasons. A, voice actors, I know, mention a lot of their roles up on social media when they come out because things are constantly changing, especially with simulcast dubs now hitting. And I don't know I think we're on season 5 of My Hero. And obviously that should be coming out sometime, hopefully in 2021. Hopefully. As well as One Piece is continuing and all that stuff. So obviously you should be looking out for those roles because I'm sure you mentioned a bunch of that stuff and anything else that's coming out on top of that. So obviously follow on Twitter, follow on Facebook, follow on Instagram because it is super important and social media is free. So definitely, there's no excuse anymore. The only excuse is if you don't have electricity and internet, and if that's the case, you got a bigger problem.
Well, and it's crazy because the social media actually nowadays can sometimes affect casting, which sucks, but is just a fact. Like the more followers you get, the more likely you'll be cast sometimes, not all the time. Voice acting is a little better about that. That's a much bigger deal on camera, but if you really like an actor, even if they don't post a lot, just follow us anyway because it makes us look good.
Well, I was going to give you the final word, but I think that's the best thing that could be said for a final word. So I think we're going to wrap up right there, unless you'd like to
And
add.
also, I do want to add that I love all of you guys so much, and I really do miss going to conventions, and I miss interacting with you guys. you know, you make what we do possible, and I'm so grateful to all of you. Thank you so much for those of you who do follow me. I'm sorry I don't post that much. I do love you guys though. Thank you for everything.
And I think that's a wrap.
Cool.